I still remember the day I first laid eyes on the Kingston Belle, my trophy yacht, a floating palace that seemed to have been lifted straight from the pages of a storybook about the rich and famous. It was 1987, and I was about to make a deal that would turn a few heads. The yacht was on the market for a staggering $40 million, but after some back and forth and a bit of charm, I snagged it for $23 million, practically a steal for a vessel of this grandeur. The Kingston Belle was more than just a boat. It was an 86-meter marvel of luxury and excess, designed by the renowned British yacht designer John Bannister. With 5 decks, lavish materials, and over 100 cabins, this wasn't your average seafaring vessel. The walls of the cabins were lined with soft chamois leather and rare bird's-eye maple, materials so expensive that I joked the yacht's interior probably cost more than my entire first property portfolio. When I did my renovations, I swapped out 350 meters of chamois leather, because why not? If you're going to indulge properly. One of the more surprising features was the children's playroom, tucked away in one of the cabins. It was decked out with plush toys and soft carpets, a quiet haven amid the opulence. Nearby, the old hair salon was transformed into a cloakroom, because on a yacht where every inch counts, space must be reimagined. The bathrooms were a bold statement, crafted entirely of hand-carved onyx from Italy. I'd like to think the artisans spent more time on the scalloped, shell-shaped shower than most people spend deciding what to watch on Netflix. The master suite was the jewel in the crown. Spanning the entire width of the hull, the bedroom featured a tortoiseshell ceiling and a bed so wide it could comfortably fit 3 of me, though, admittedly, that might be a bit much. The bed came with bedside remote controls for entertainment, room service, and the curtains, because who wants to get up when you can press a button? There was even a secret exit, perfect for a dramatic escape or just sneaking out of family dinners. From there, you'd wander past a mirrored dressing room into the master bathroom, where the sunburst pattern on the onyx floor caught the light just right. To one side sat my barber's chair. After all, a man's hair must be kept shipshape at all times. The adjacent shower and sauna, carved from a single slab of onyx, boasted 13 nozzles, delivering a spa experience that could rival any 5-star hotel. Downstairs was the private elevator, whisking me up to the sun deck, where a bar and even a gaming area awaited. Outside, behind bulletproof glass, there was a circular swimming pool, a mere 2.4 meters across but equipped with a jet stream that let you swim endlessly without moving forward. I half expected the neighbors to complain about the noise, but then again, no one could miss a yacht like this. Guests found their own slice of luxury, too. Every cabin had its own ensuite bathroom, with sinks adorned in gold hardware and unique carvings. It was, as I like to say, traveling like a queen on the Kingston Belle. The yacht was a masterpiece, a floating work of art, and while I wasn't exactly a sailor at heart, I figured if I was going to own a boat, it might as well be this one. Of course, the yacht's history was as colorful as its interiors. Originally built for a flamboyant arms dealer with ties to the Middle East, it had hosted kings, diplomats, and celebrities alike. The Kingston Belle was a business tool as much as a plaything. Negotiations sometimes took place in its opulent cabins, far from the prying eyes of international regulators. Eventually, though, even I had to admit that the upkeep was a royal pain. Operating costs soared to nearly $1.8 million a year, and despite the grandeur, the yacht spent more time moored in luxury marinas than cutting through the waves. Eventually, I sold it to a wealthy Saudi prince for a fraction of its original price, who renamed it the Kingdom's Jewel. Rumor has it the yacht now spends most of its days lounging near the French Riviera, basking in the Mediterranean sun, as if it had earned a retirement it certainly deserved. But the story doesn't end there. As I stepped away from the Kingston Belle, I couldn't help but wonder, who would be the next to claim this floating palace? And what secrets lay hidden beneath its gilded decks, waiting to be uncovered? That's a tale for another time. After parting ways with the Kingston Belle, I turned my gaze to something a little closer to solid ground, my sprawling seaside estate in Cornwall. Nestled just outside the quaint village of St. Ives, the manor was the sort of place that made you feel like you'd stepped into a Jane Austen novel, if Jane Austen had been into gold-plated door handles. The house itself was a towering Victorian masterpiece, its stone facade softened by creeping ivy and the salty breeze from the Atlantic. Inside, the rooms stretched on endlessly, 8 bedrooms, each with its own ensuite bathroom, and a ballroom so vast it could have hosted the entire village's Christmas party with room to spare. The ceilings were high enough to make you feel like a mere mortal, and the chandeliers sparkled with thousands of crystals that caught the light just right. My wife, Victoria, loved to dress the part of a modern-day duchess when we entertained guests. Picture this: a deep emerald silk gown that hugged her slender frame, paired with stiletto heels polished to a mirror shine. Around her neck hung a delicate sapphire necklace that caught the candlelight, and her hair was swept up in loose waves that framed her sharp cheekbones. She had this effortless way of blending elegance with a hint of mischief, like she might just challenge you to a game of poker after dinner. Speaking of poker, the manor had its own card room, where I held late-night games for a select circle of friends and business associates. The room was paneled with dark mahogany, the walls lined with portraits of stern-faced ancestors who probably wouldn't have approved of our antics. The green felt table was surrounded by high-backed leather chairs, and there was always a steady supply of scotch and cigars, a combination that led to more than one regrettable bet. One evening, as a storm raged outside, Victoria and I found ourselves alone in the drawing room. The fire crackled in the grand stone hearth, casting flickering shadows on the ornate wallpaper. She was wearing a deep red velvet dress that clung to her curves, the neckline daring enough to turn heads, but tasteful enough to keep the butler's eyebrows from raising. Her laughter filled the room as we toasted to a successful year. But beneath the glamour there was tension. Rumors had started swirling about the estate. Whispers of strange noises in the night, and flickering lights in the west wing where no one was supposed to go. I chalked it up to old wiring and the quirks of a centuries-old building, but Victoria seemed unsettled. One night she confided in me that she'd seen a shadowy figure near the garden maze, a silhouette that vanished when she approached. I joked that it was just the ghost of a disgruntled gardener, but even I felt a chill. The estate boasted more than just lavish rooms. There was an indoor swimming pool with mosaic tiles depicting mythical sea creatures, a private cinema with plush leather seats, and a hidden wine cellar stocked with vintages that would make a sommelier weep. Yet my favorite spot was the rooftop terrace, where I could watch the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, a glass of single malt in hand. Despite the grandeur, the estate demanded constant attention. Repairs, renovations, staff management. It was a full-time job masquerading as a weekend retreat. Yet, I relished the challenge. After all, what's the point of having a castle if you don't keep the drawbridge in working order? But as the storm outside grew fiercer and the shadows lengthened, I couldn't shake the feeling that the estate held secrets deeper than its wine cellar. And somewhere, hidden in those ancient walls, was a mystery waiting to unravel, a mystery that might just change everything I thought I knew about my sanctuary by the sea. The next chapter of my life unfolded not on the rolling Cornish cliffs, but in the heart of London, where the city's relentless pulse beat beneath the towering glass and steel of my newest venture, a luxury hotel that I proudly named the Ashford Grand. Situated just a stone's throw from Hyde Park, it was designed to be a sanctuary for the elite, a place where opulence met discretion. The hotel's facade gleamed under the London fog, its classic Georgian architecture restored to perfection, every brick meticulously cleaned and every window adorned with heavy velvet drapes. Inside, the lobby was a symphony of marble floors, gilded moldings and crystal chandeliers that cast a soft, golden glow. The scent of fresh jasmine and sandalwood lingered in the air, courtesy of the bespoke candles burning in every corner. At the center of it all was my partner, Elizabeth. She was the epitome of British elegance, always impeccably dressed, her sharp bob framing a face that could freeze a room or melt it with a smile. That day she wore a tailored navy blue dress that hugged her silhouette, paired with patent leather pumps clicking confidently on the marble. Around her wrist, a delicate silver bracelet caught the light, a subtle nod to her understated taste. Elizabeth and I were preparing for the hotel's grand opening, a night that promised champagne flowing like the Thames and guests dressed to the nines. The ballroom had been transformed into a fairy tale setting, with towering floral arrangements, golden candelabras, and a live-string quartet tuning their instruments in the corner. The scent of freshly baked scones mingled with the rich aroma of aged scotch. But beneath the glamour, the pressure was palpable. The hotel was my boldest gamble yet, a venture that demanded perfection. Staff bustled through the corridors, smoothing linens and adjusting lighting, while I oversaw every detail with a hawk's eye. Elizabeth was my rock, navigating the social whirl with grace, charming dignitaries and celebrities alike. That evening, as the first guests arrived, ranging from aristocrats to high-powered financiers, I felt a surge of pride. The Ashford Grand was more than a building. It was a statement. Yet, as the champagne glasses clinked and laughter echoed, a whisper of unease drifted through the air. A mysterious guest had checked in under an alias, requesting the penthouse suite with no explanation. Security was tight, but even so, the man's presence stirred the staff. Curiosity gnawed at me. Who was this enigma cloaked in bespoke suits and quiet confidence? His visits to the private library, where he spent hours poring over dusty tomes, added to the intrigue. One evening, Elizabeth spotted him speaking in hushed tones on the terrace, the city lights twinkling behind him like a constellation. I couldn't help but wonder if the Ashford Grand was about to become more than a luxury haven. It might just be the stage for a drama that none of us could predict. As the night deepened and the guests reveled in the grandeur, I found myself drawn to the penthouse door, sensing that behind it lay secrets as carefully guarded as the finest vintage in my cellar. And as I stood there, the city stretching endlessly below, I realized the question wasn't who this guest was, but what he wanted, and what I was willing to risk to find out. The morning after the grand opening, London was cloaked in a thick mist. The city's usual hustle softened to a gentle murmur. I found myself wandering the corridors of the Ashford Grand, the echo of last night's laughter replaced by hushed whispers of staff preparing for another day. My mind kept drifting back to the enigmatic guest in the penthouse, the man with secrets hidden behind his polished exterior. Curiosity gnawed at me like a persistent itch I couldn't scratch. Determined to uncover more, I decided to pay a discreet visit to the penthouse myself. The suite was a sprawling expanse of modern luxury, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the Thames curling through the city like a silver ribbon. The decor was understated yet lavish, soft cashmere throws, sleek leather armchairs, and a grand piano that looked as though it had been played by the ghosts of legends. As I stepped inside, the faint aroma of sandalwood and aged whiskey lingered in the air. The man wasn't there, but his belongings told their own story. An open, leather-bound journal lay on the polished mahogany desk, filled with cryptic notes and sketches of architectural blueprints that looked oddly familiar. A photograph slipped out as I shuffled through the pages. a faded image of a grand estate nestled in the English countryside, its silhouette strikingly similar to my Cornwall manor. My pulse quickened. Was this mere coincidence, or was the stranger somehow connected to the mysteries I'd sensed back home? I pocketed the photograph, resolving to dig deeper. Later that day, Elizabeth joined me in the hotel's private lounge, her expression sharp and inquisitive. She wore a tailored emerald green suit that complemented her striking eyes, a simple gold necklace resting just above the collar. Over cups of steaming Earl Grey, I shared my findings. Elizabeth's brow furrowed. "That estate," she mused, "it's not just any manor. It belonged to the Hawthorne family, a lineage steeped in secrets and scandal. Rumor has it, there's a hidden vault somewhere on the grounds, filled with documents that could change everything." I leaned back, the weight of the revelation settling like a stone in my chest. The pieces were beginning to align, the shadow in Cornwall, the mysterious guest in London, the old estate with its whispered secrets. It was as if fate had woven a thread, connecting past and present, pulling me into a story far larger than any business deal or luxury venture. Determined not to be outmaneuvered, I arranged for discreet surveillance of the penthouse, and a team was sent to the Cornwall estate to search for clues. Meanwhile, the hotel buzzed with its usual elegance, guests unaware of the undercurrents swirling beneath the polished surface. One evening, as Elizabeth and I stood on the terrace overlooking Hyde Park, a sudden chill swept through the air. She glanced at me, eyes sparkling with a mix of excitement and caution. "Whatever this is," she said softly, "it's only just beginning." And as the city lights flickered like distant stars, I knew she was right. The hunt for truth had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. The following week, the tension between the opulence of the Ashford Grand and the shadowy mystery unfolding beneath its polished surface became impossible to ignore. The hotel buzzed with the usual high society chatter, champagne toasts, whispered deals, and the soft click of designer heels on marble. But behind closed doors, my team was unraveling threads that led far beyond London's foggy streets. At the Cornwall estate, the search for the hidden vault took a surprising turn. The groundskeeper, a wiry man named Thomas with weathered hands and a keen eye, led the investigators to an overgrown section of the garden maze, a labyrinth of twisting hedges that had long been the subject of local gossip. As the sun dipped low, casting elongated shadows across the maze, Thomas revealed a concealed entrance beneath a centuries-old oak tree. Down a narrow stone staircase, the team discovered a chamber lined with wrought iron shelves, dust thick as fog clinging to forgotten relics. Among faded letters and brittle maps, there lay a leather-bound ledger, its pages filled with cryptic entries detailing clandestine meetings, coded transactions, and names that sent a chill down my spine. The Hawthorne family's secrets were far darker and more tangled than I'd imagined. Back in London, the mysterious guest, who had introduced himself only as Mr. Carlyle, maintained his inscrutable presence. I caught glimpses of him in the hotel's private library, poring over ancient texts and occasionally making calls in hushed tones. His tailored charcoal suit and silver cufflinks whispered of wealth and discretion, but his eyes held a restless intensity, as if haunted by ghosts only he could see. One evening, Elizabeth and I attended a gala at the Ashford Grand, the ballroom awash in crystal chandeliers and the soft melodies of a string quartet. She wore a midnight blue silk gown that shimmered with every movement, the neckline daring enough to captivate yet elegant enough to command respect. I couldn't help but notice the way guests gravitated toward her, their conversations pausing as she floated by. Amid the revelry, I spotted Mr. Carlyle slipping away from the crowd, his expression tense. Sensing an opportunity, I followed him through the labyrinthine corridors to a secluded lounge. The room was bathed in warm amber light, the scent of aged leather and tobacco hanging thick. "Mr. Carlyle," I began, my voice steady but edged with curiosity. "Care to explain your interest in the Hawthorne estate? It seems our paths are entwined more than mere coincidence." He regarded me silently for a moment, then offered a half-smile. "Mr. Langford, some histories are better left buried. But since you're involved now, perhaps it's time the truth saw the light." Before I could respond, the room's heavy oak door creaked, and a shadow flickered in the hallway. My heart pounded as the mystery deepened, and I realized that in this game of secrets and power, every revelation came with a price. As the night stretched on, I couldn't shake the feeling that the true story was still waiting to be told, and that the stakes were higher than I'd ever dared imagine. Days later, the atmosphere around the Ashford Grand thickened with a mix of anticipation and unease. The secrets unearthed at the Cornwall estate had triggered a chain reaction, and I could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching my every move. Business carried on as usual, with guests sipping champagne and discussing the latest art auctions. But beneath the glitter, a storm was brewing. Elizabeth was unshakable, as always. That morning she arrived at the hotel in a tailored gray suit, her auburn hair pulled back into a sleek chignon that revealed the sharp line of her jaw. Her emerald eyes held a steely resolve as she briefed the staff on heightened security protocols. "Discretion is paramount," she said firmly. "We can't afford any leaks. Not now." That afternoon, a courier arrived with an unmarked envelope, slipped discreetly into my hand. Inside was a single photograph, a grainy snapshot of the manor's garden maze, but taken from an angle that revealed a figure lurking near the hidden entrance. The image was dated just 2 nights prior. A chill ran down my spine. Someone else was watching, someone who didn't want the Hawthorne secrets uncovered. Determined to confront the threat, I arranged a private meeting with Mr. Carlyle in the hotel's executive suite. The room was minimalist but elegant, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Carlyle entered wearing a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal a tattoo I hadn't noticed before, a serpent coiled around a dagger. He wasted no time. "Mr. Langford, you're meddling in affairs far older and darker than you realize. The Hawthornes weren't just a family. They were gatekeepers of power, and their secrets have cost lives." I studied him carefully. "And you? What's your stake in this?" He hesitated, then pulled out a worn leather journal, its pages yellowed with age. "My ancestors were among the few who dared to challenge the Hawthornes. I've spent years piecing together their story, but others want it buried forever." The conversation was interrupted by a sharp knock. Elizabeth entered, her expression unreadable, clutching a sealed envelope. "This arrived for you," she said, voice steady but low. Inside was a note. "Stop digging, or the past will claim you next." The message was clear, and the threat unmistakable. That night, as London's fog rolled in thicker than ever, I stood on the terrace, the city lights blurred through the mist. Elizabeth joined me, her hand slipping into mine. "We're in deeper than we thought," she whispered. I nodded, the weight of the unfolding mystery pressing down. Somewhere in the shadows of history and power, the truth waited. But revealing it might come at a cost none of us were prepared to pay. The days that followed blurred into a tense dance of secrets and shadows. The Ashford Grand hummed with life, its grand halls filled with laughter and clinking glasses. Yet, beneath the surface, an invisible game of cat and mouse played out. Every corner, every whispered conversation seemed laced with hidden meaning. I found myself constantly glancing over my shoulder, questioning who could be trusted. One evening, as rain lashed against the tall windows of my private study, Elizabeth arrived wearing a sleek black dress that shimmered under the soft glow of the chandelier. The fabric hugged her curves just enough to hint at the strength beneath her poised exterior. Her lips curled into a knowing smile as she placed a small leather-bound book on my desk. "It's from the manor," she said softly. "Our team found it hidden in a false bottom of an old desk in the library." I flipped through the fragile pages, discovering detailed entries penned in a flowing script, confessions, coded messages, and cryptic references to a council that seemed to wield power far beyond the estate's walls. One passage caught my eye. "The truth shall be buried with the last hawthorn, but the key remains hidden where the sun meets the sea." The mystery deepened. That night, restless and driven by a mix of dread and determination, I decided to visit the Cornwall estate alone. The estate lay silent under a full moon, the garden maze casting eerie shadows that danced with every flicker of the wind. I moved cautiously, the gravel crunching beneath my polished leather shoes. Reaching the concealed entrance beneath the oak tree, I descended into the cold chamber once more. As I examined the shelves, a faint glimmer caught my eye. Behind a loose stone, I found an ornate silver key, its intricate design matching symbols from the journal's coded entries. Heart-pounding, I pocketed the key and returned to the surface, unaware of the dark figure watching from the tree line. Back at the Ashford Grand, Elizabeth awaited, her eyes sharp as I revealed my discovery. "This key," she mused, "could unlock more than just a door. It might open a chapter that some would kill to keep closed." Before I could respond, the hotel's power flickered, plunging the lobby into an unsettling darkness. Emergency lights buzzed on, casting long shadows that seemed to creep along the walls. A whisper of movement. A door slammed somewhere deep within the building. We exchanged a glance. This was no coincidence. The past was closing in, and the stakes had never been higher. The blackout at the Ashford Grand was more than a mere flicker of the lights. It was the opening act of something far darker. As the emergency lighting bathed the marble floors in an eerie, pale glow, the usually bustling lobby fell into a hushed tension. Staff and guests alike exchanged nervous glances, their murmurs swallowed by the heavy silence. Elizabeth moved swiftly, her tailored crimson blazer sharp against the dimness as she took charge. "Stay close," she instructed, her voice calm but commanding. Together we navigated the shadowed corridors, the faint hum of backup generators, our only soundtrack. Suddenly a metallic clatter echoed from the grand staircase. I spun toward the sound, heart pounding. A shadow darted past, disappearing into the labyrinth of hallways. "Did you see that?" I asked, but Elizabeth merely nodded grimly. Our pursuit led us to the private library, where the mysterious Mr. Carlyle had spent so much time. The door was ajar, and inside the room was a chaos of overturned chairs and scattered books. On the polished oak desk lay a hastily scrawled note. "Some truths are better left in the dark." A shiver ran down my spine. Whoever was behind this was sending a clear message, and they weren't done yet. Elizabeth knelt to examine the note, her manicured fingers steady despite the tension. "This isn't just a warning," she said. "It's a challenge." Just then, a soft chime echoed through the hotel's intercom system. A distorted voice crackled to life, cold and deliberate. "Mr. Langford, your curiosity is commendable, but dangerous. Cease your investigation, or the consequences will be severe." The line went dead. I clenched my fists, anger and resolve bubbling inside me. "We can't back down now," I said, meeting Elizabeth's unwavering gaze. She smiled, a flicker of that mischievous light I adored. "Good, because I have a feeling the real game is just beginning." As the lights flickered back to life, illuminating the elegant chaos, I knew one thing for certain. The secrets of the Hawthorne estate and the Ashford Grand were entwined in a web more tangled and perilous than I had ever imagined, and the players were only revealing their true faces. The days that followed were a tumultuous blur of whispered alarms and shadowed meetings. The Ashford Grand, once a sanctuary of elegance and refinement, had become a chessboard where every move was calculated, every glance loaded with suspicion. Guests arrived and departed under a veil of secrecy, the hotel's glittering facade masking the storm swirling within. Elizabeth and I worked tirelessly, coordinating with security experts and private investigators. She was a vision of calm in the eye of the tempest, her tailored slate-gray suit sharp as ever, her gaze unwavering as she delved into the depths of the mystery alongside me. Together, we pieced together fragments of a puzzle that stretched back generations, uncovering a clandestine network of influence and betrayal tied to the Hawthorne legacy. One evening, as the city's skyline glittered beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows of the executive suite, a breakthrough came. A coded message hidden within the leather-bound journal pointed to a forgotten chamber beneath the manor, a place where the most guarded secrets lay buried. The key I'd found in the garden maze was said to unlock its door. Without hesitation, Elizabeth and I arranged a private trip to Cornwall, determined to uncover the truth. The drive through winding country lanes was cloaked in mist, the estate looming ahead like a sentinel from another age. That night, under a blanket of stars, we ventured into the manor's shadowed depths. Using the silver key, I unlocked a concealed door behind an ancient tapestry. The air was thick with dust and secrets as we descended a spiral staircase into a subterranean chamber. Flickering candlelight revealed walls lined with aged parchments, artifacts, and portraits of stern-faced ancestors. At the chamber's center stood a heavy oak chest, its surface carved with the same intricate symbols as the key. With bated breath, I lifted the lid to reveal stacks of documents, letters, maps, and diaries that chronicled a web of political intrigue, forbidden alliances, and a conspiracy that reached far beyond the manor's grounds. As Elizabeth and I pored over the revelations, a sudden sound echoed behind us, a soft, deliberate footstep. We spun around to face a figure emerging from the shadows, cloaked in darkness, eyes gleaming with intent. The final act was unfolding, and the secrets we'd uncovered were about to change everything. The figure stepped forward, the dim candlelight catching the glint of a silver pendant resting against a tailored black coat. His eyes locked onto ours with a mix of challenge and cold calculation. "I see you've found what was meant to remain hidden," he said, his voice smooth but edged with steel. Elizabeth instinctively moved beside me, her presence a shield as much as a statement. "Who are you?" I demanded, keeping my voice steady despite the surge of adrenaline. "A guardian of legacies," he replied cryptically. "The Hawthorne's past is not just history, it's a warning. Some truths unravel the very fabric of power." I clenched my jaw, feeling the weight of the moment. We're no longer interested in secrets kept in shadows. The world deserves to know. A faint smile flickered across his lips. "Then prepare yourself. The path you've chosen leads to danger, deception, and sacrifices you cannot yet imagine." Before we could react, he stepped back into the darkness, disappearing as silently as he had come, leaving only the faint echo of his footsteps. Elizabeth exhaled slowly, eyes fierce. "This isn't over. It's only just begun." As dawn's first light filtered through the chamber's narrow windows, I realized that the pursuit of truth had transformed from a personal quest into a battle against forces far greater than I had imagined. The intertwined fates of the Kingston Bell, the Cornwall Manor, and the Ashford Grand were threads in a tapestry woven with ambition, power, and secrets that reached across continents. And somewhere, beyond the veil of history and intrigue, the next move awaited, by those who would stop at nothing to keep the past buried. The game was far from over.